Hey guys, I'm Kale the Space Cow, and here lately I've been thinking a lot about MOBAs. So I thought I'd make a video talking about them. How about that? But first, let's talk about what a MOBA is. MOBA stands for, as some of you probably already know, Multiplayer Online Battle Arena. Now, honestly, this is a vague term since most online games could be considered a MOBA. For example, Quake Live. Quake Live is a first-person multiplayer shooter where you battle in small or large arena maps in, capture the flag modes or free-for-all mode, clan arena, and it's online. Multiplayer online battle arena, right? Well, apparently not. Most gamers, and apparently game developers themselves, seem to think that a MOBA game consists of lanes, jungles, and towers. But since that's the most accepted form of what a MOBA is, I guess we'll just go with that. Anyway, MOBAs have jumped in popularity over the past several years. There have been many entries into the MOBA genre. Not that surprising. When a game or game type becomes popular, you're very likely to see a lot more of them. Not a big deal really, that's pretty normal. However, what I do take issue with is that there is apparently this checklist when it comes to making MOBAs, as if your MOBA must meet these requirements in order to be a MOBA. And what does that checklist consist of? Well, let me share it with you. Your MOBA must include lanes, minions, towers, a jungle area, a shop that characters can buy items from in order to become stronger, an absurdly large character roster, a wide variety of character abilities, and last, but definitely not least, farming. Now, of course, none of these things are inherently bad. The point I'm making is that gamers and developers alike have this static view of what a MOBA should or even could be. There has been very little in the way of creativity when it comes to the MOBA genre. Now, don't think I'm dumping ass all over these games, because I'm actually not. In fact, I really like MOBAs. There are just certain aspects to them that I don't like, and I don't think that I'm alone in that. And I really feel like MOBAs could be popular to the more action-oriented gamers such as myself. And that's what I'm going to be talking about the most. So you're probably saying, but MOBAs are action-oriented! Well, I disagree. To me, MOBAs are slow-paced and methodical. They have huge learning curves, and there's a plethora of aspects about them that aren't readily expressed to the player. For example, in Dota 2, you can do something called creep stacking. Creep stacking is where a player aggroes a camp of creeps and pulls them away from their spawn area so that a new set of creeps can spawn in that empty area. However, in order for this to happen, you have to pull them at a very specific time and make sure they are pulled far enough away. This is just one of the many things that you can do in these games that isn't explained to the player at all. The only way to know that a tactic like this exists is if you find out by accident, or someone or something else explicitly explains it to you, as it was with me. Let's also take into consideration that these games are heavily team-oriented. Everybody on the team needs to be playing their role and also carrying their own weight. It's not uncommon for a game to be lost simply because one person, or maybe even several, aren't playing that well. Now, obviously, team-oriented games need teamwork to win. Nothing wrong with that, but these MOBAs in particular, there's something else at play. And that is the penalties and punishment. You see, these games can be so heavily influenced by a single player that it can literally drag down the experience of another player's very easily. Because when you start losing in a MOBA, you start heading towards a downslope that isn't easily redirected out of. So what exactly are these penalties? Well, if you leave a game too early, you can get penalized for that. Repeated offenses can cause you to be unable to play that certain queue for an extended period of time. These aren't exactly short matches either. They can last anywhere from 25 to 45 minutes. I've seen some matches last an hour even. So let's say you're in a game and all anyone is doing is arguing with each other and throwing the game simply because they can. You'd probably want to leave that game, right? Well, you can't. Your own game is holding you hostage, unless of course you feel like taking that 10-minute ban from queue. Even Counter-Strike Go has begun doing this with their ranked mode, but at least I can choose to play the more serious version of it if I wish. With MOBAs, it's all serious all the time. Anyway, let's move on. Let me ask you, the viewer of this video, a question. What is it about MOBAs that you like? It can be anything you want as long as it pertains to MOBAs. While you think about that, let me tell you what I like about MOBAs. I like the characters with their unique personalities and their lines of dialogue to match that personality. I like the colorful and powerful abilities that they have that cause destruction to both your enemies and the land. I like the synergy between players to take out enemies or take over an objective. I like carefully crafted battlefields that allow for ambushes or choke points to hold your enemies at bay because they don't have the high ground. I like it when two teams clash together on the battlefield and the last one standing claims victory. Those are the things I like about MOBAs. So what were some of the things that you liked? Was it similar to mine? Let me make a bold assumption here and guess that probably no one said farming was their favorite element. So currently, MOBAs are quite passive and have this theme of only fight the battles that you can win. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the line, just sit back and farm a bit. Ugh, I don't want to farm, I want to fight. I want to, play the game. Wait, what was that? You don't have your items yet? Better sit back behind your tower just a bit and farm those minions or jungle until you have them, because until then, you're too weak to be a viable asset to your team because you're a late game character. Oh, and you better not feed. And it's not just all the downtime between the fights that I find to be a problem either. The fights themselves are incredibly short. Even the biggest team fights will last about, 20 seconds if you're lucky? I guess all I'm trying to say is that I'd like to see a MOBA come out that starts breaking the mold a little bit and create a more fast-paced and action-oriented experience and, doesn't handcuff you to your mouse and keyboard. We are starting to see a shift take place, however, and it's really already in full swing. Games like Overwatch are starting to become a thing. It's an FPS game based around 5-on-5 battles in arenas. Other games are following suit, such as Paragon and Lawbreakers. These games are almost exactly what I'm looking for. If it wasn't for them being, in a 5-on-5 format and in first person, I'd be all over them. Still, these games have what? They have fun characters, fun abilities, and a strong emphasis on action. Finally, some game developers are starting to see that maybe a game can be team-oriented and doesn't have to be slow and methodical. But there's still one other thing I'd like to talk about when it comes to MOBAs. And I think it's a rather important one since, after all, it's one of the reasons that these games have amassed such a huge following. And that is the esport and competitive side. To be more specific though, I want to talk about the spectator side of things. What it's like watching these games. Now naturally, this is just from my own personal viewpoint of things, and I recognize that I'm probably in the minority when it comes to what I'm about to say, which is this. These games are boring to watch. So first of all, the top two MOBAs right now are League of Legends and Dota 2. Both of them have a character roster that exceeds 100 playable characters. Each hero has at least 4 abilities, their own stats, and a role to which they are best suited. Both games also have over 100 items that can alter the stats of said heroes. Now, naturally, only the most hardcore fans will know what most of these heroes and items do. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm also sure that there are casual players out there who may not know every nitty-gritty detail and still enjoy watching these games. However, I honestly feel like I need to have a wiki open on the side at all times just to even know why buying an Eye of Scotty is going to completely turn the game around for one team. When you have all these characters with stats and items that affect stats flying around, it becomes a mess of variables and it becomes nearly impossible to follow as a spectator. That's not even taking into consideration that there's 10 players in total in a single match. These players are spread about an entire map that is really rather large, so focusing in on any single action is also quite difficult. And when a team battle breaks out, oh my god, I have no idea which part of the action I need to be looking at. Where did the clutch play happen? Did the support get taken out too early? Was the DPS doing his job? Was the tank soaking up damage? Was there a blink to the back of the line? Did a hero get nuked down? Any of these things can happen individually or sometimes within the span of just a few split seconds. Sometimes even the shoutcasters sound like they're scrambling to call out the action. But hey, kudos to those guys, cause shoutcasting a MOBA certainly can't be easy. So, you know what? Let's look at another game in contrast. Street Fighter. I realize this game is in a totally different genre, but remember, I'm talking about this through the eyes of someone who is simply spectating a match. So, when it comes to Street Fighter, the game is simple. You beat your opponent by draining their life bar. How do you drain the life bar? You simply hit your opponent with punches and kicks, use special moves, and string them together for combos. Oh, and you can block to defend yourself. Basically, as a spectator, all I need to know is this. Players throw punches, one player gets hit, health bar goes down, first one to have their health bar depleted loses. Bam! Boom! Understood, I got it. Armed with this simple information, I can now watch the match and be fully invested because I don't have this seemingly insurmountable amount of knowledge that I need to overcome in order to know why someone is winning or losing. When it comes to combat games, I don't necessarily need to know what a wake up is or what an FDAC is. Hell, I still don't know what an FDAC is. I just need to know that getting hit is bad. So you may be saying, well, maybe you just like combat games more. Well, that's interesting in theory, but the truth actually is this. I've played way more MOBA games than I have combat games. In fact, I can't stand playing combat games because I'm awful. But I can watch them and enjoy the competitive nature of them way more than I can any MOBA. Anyway, I digress. I think I've shared just about everything I wanted to say on the subject of MOBAs, and before I did this video, I looked around on YouTube to see if there were any other people who maybe shared the same thoughts as I did. Unfortunately, most of what I found were just videos exclaiming why League of Legends sucks, or why Dota 2 sucks. Not exactly what I was looking for. There were videos, of course, about how toxic mobile players can be, and I don't know, I just didn't feel like that was necessary because there's already so many of those. There was only a small handful of videos I could find where somebody shares their thoughts about why they don't like MOBAs, but even those didn't go into very much detail. So the reason I made this video is because I want to give a deeper understanding of why these games don't work for me, and maybe, they don't work for a lot of other people out there as well, but, maybe they're just not as vocal about it. So I'm really hoping that I made that point as clear as I possibly could, because I really think MOBAs can be expanded upon to, invite a broader range of players to enjoy them. Anyway, that does it for this video. I hope anyone watching this enjoyed it. Bye bye.